Welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for helping us reach 1,000 subscribers. And please continue to like, subscribe, and click the notification below. And today we have the 10 terrifying horror stories. Thank you, and please enjoy.
On November 7, a visitor to the world-renowned Villisca Axe Martyr House in Villisca, Iowa, was rushed to a nearby hospital after being found with a self-inflicted stab wound to his chest. The house is a familiar sight to paranormal investigators who have proclaimed it to be one of the most haunted places in America, following the 1912 murders of 6 children and 2 adults whose skulls were crushed while they sleep in their beds. The crime was never solved, and visitors to the house regularly report emotional, physical, and supernatural disturbances during their overnight visits. They play with the children, they hear voices, they get pictures of anomalies, says Marteline, 77, who bought the house in 1994 and restored it to its 1912 condition, stripping the place of all electricity and plumbing and turning it into a tourist attraction. I have notebooks from just the last 2 years full of the overnight experiences people have had. Very few of them go away without experiencing something, said Marceline. Those experiences cost guests $428 a night. Apparently, people will pay good money to sleep in the presence of potentially malevolent spirits. Due to the overwhelming number of paranormal experiences reported in the house, it has become one of the most regularly visited sites for ghost hunters, who will often bring board EVP recorders or the original acts from the murders into the house in attempts to stir up whatever dark forces lie within its coarse wall. Earlier this month, Robert Seven Larson Jr., 37, of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, was one such visitor. He arrived with a group of friends for a recreational paranormal investigation, according to Montgomery County Sheriff Joe Sampson. From my understanding, he was alone in the northwest bedroom and the rest of the party was outside, and he called for help on their mobile two-way radios, Sampson told. His companions found him stabbed in the chest and apparently self-inflicted one called 911. And Larson was brought to a nearby hospital before being helicoptered to Creighton University Medical Center in Omaha. According to Montgomery County Police report, the incident happened around 12:45 a.m., which is said to be the approximate time that the 1912 murders of Josiah and Sarah Moore, along with their 4 children and 2 visiting girls, took place. We call the Moore murders America's greatest unsolved mystery, says Kelly Randall, the documentarian behind Villisca Living with a Mystery. The story reads like fiction, and the more you know about it, the weirder it becomes. It's a story that needs no embellishment. On the night of June 9, 1912, Josiah Moore and his wife, 3 sons, and daughter attended an evening church service before returning home, accompanied by 2 friends of his daughters who were invited to spend the night at the house. Around 7 a.m. the following morning, a neighbor noticed the house was unusually quiet. And when she found the doors locked and all of the windows covered, she called Moore's brother, who unlocked the house and found his relatives bloodied and lifeless in their beds. Local officials quickly lost control of the crime scene where an estimated 100 people arrived to gawk on the mutilated body. Fingerprinting had yet to become a widely established tool of criminal investigation in the U.S. Anamasic disturbances to the house from onlookers prevented detectives from collecting sufficient evidence for a conclusive investigation. Gouge marks across bedroom ceilings for the upswing of the axe revealed something about the killer's height, exonerating one particularly short suspect. But these marks were in the center of the room, not above the victim's bed, and were told to be the killer while wielding the axe in a one-hand frenzy of excitement. The bodies of Lena and Anna Slinger were discovered in the downstairs bedroom. At the base of 12-year-old Lena's body, a crescent lamp was found, possibly used to project light into her body, which was lying in a sexual pose with her underwear missing, blood smeared across her legs, and defensive one across her arms. Investigators believe she was a victim of sexual abuse and also the only member of the house who attempted to fight off her attacker. With today's technology and investigative techniques, the original murders might have been solved quite easily. While a wide array of suspicion and finger-pointing at the time divided the town into fevers hysteria, historians today identify 3 different possibilities for the killers: a serial killer with ties to other similar murders, a traveling preacher with a history of sexual misconduct, and a state senator who was thought to have hired a cock-adult hitman to kill more. But no one was ever convicted. A number of books and documentaries have chronicled the murders and subsequent paranormal investigations of the Moore house. They cite various individuals who claim to have been a man with an axe roaming the hallways, or heard the desperate cries of children in their bedrooms, or become trapped inside a bedroom closet where Lena Stillinger is thought to have hid for her attacker. But when Randall began filming his documentary in 1990s, there had been little talk of the house being haunted. He said that in his years of filming inside the house, he never experienced or saw anything out of the ordinary. Nor did any of the previous occupants he spoke with who had lived in the house for years before it became a tourist attraction. The first paranormal investigator visited the house in 1999. They declared the house was haunted and that they would identify who the killer was, he tells. Before this, those who visited were interested in the place merely as a well-preserved documentation of the past. The house is on the National Registry of Historic Places. It's unfortunate that more people aren't interested in the true story of the house because, like any historical story, there's something to be learned, Randall says. If people are just going in there to get scared at something they heard or saw, I don't know that they learned from that. Sheriff Sampson has been on the county police force since 1992 and sheriffs for the last 6 years. He says that he's never been called out to the house for any emergencies in the past and refers to Bileska and just your basic small town Iowa farming community. The town has drawn a lot of attention since the Larson episode, however, and both Sampson and Lynn, the caretakers, say they have been inundated with media inquiries which they hope will end soon. This particular incident has been very upsetting, Lynn says. It's publicity, but it's not exactly the kind of publicity you desire to have. I don't want people thinking that when they come to the Bileska Axe murder house, something's going to happen that's going to make them do something like that. I want them to have a good experience from the house, learn about the history, and if something paranormal comes about, then that's one up for them, I guess. Lynn and Sampson say that Larson has recovered from his injury but will not comment any further out of respect for the family. There is a whole body of folklore surrounding the Moore murders, Randall the documentarian says, and that itself is fascinating so long as you keep in mind that it's folklore not fact, so I just regard the paranormal sighting as a contemporary version of that. It's an extension of the folklore that began in the day of the murders. Folklore can tell you more about how people see themselves and how they see the world than it does the facts surrounding the case. When you think of haunted dolls, it's likely the creepy old Victorian-looking porcelain kind that springs to mind. None of which you probably have laying around. Still, don't get too comfortable around any kind toys too soon. Though a Disney Frozen Elsa doll that was gifted for Christmas 2013 in the Houston area made headlines earlier this year when it suddenly became haunted. The doll recited praises from the movie Frozen and sang Let It Go when a button on its necklace was pressed. For 2 years it did that in English, Mother Emily Madonna said. In 2015 it started doing it alternately between Spanish and English. There wasn't a button that changed this, it was just random. The family has owned the doll for more than 6 years and never changed its batteries. The mother says the doll would randomly begin to speak and sing even with its switch turned off. The family decided to throw the creepy doll out in December of 2019. Weeks later, they found it inside a bench in their living room. The kids insisted they did not put it there, and I believed them because they wouldn't have dug through the garbage outside, Madonna told KPRC to Houston News. At that point, Elsa says to sing the English rendition of Let It Go altogether, speaking only Spanish when pressed. The family then double-bagged the bizarre doll and placed it at the bottom of their garbage. It was taken out on garbage day. They went on a trip shortly after, but when they returned, Elsa too had come back and was waiting in the backyard of their home. This time, the family mailed Elsa to a family friend in Minnesota. who taped the hunted doll to the front bumper of his truck. It doesn't seem to have made its way back to Houston yet, as per Madonia's latest February Facebook update on the creepy doll. In August 2016 in North London, 26-year-old Kennedy Ivey began acting strange and aggressive following a pain in his throat. He reportedly beat his father, threatened to cut off his own penis, and complained of a python or snake inside of him, before his family restrained him to a bed with cable ties and excessive force. As the BBC reported, the family then set about attempting to cure Kennedy through restraint and prayer over the next 3 days, the court was told. His brother Colin Ivey told police, "It's clear that thing was in him. What we believe was a demon because it was not natural. It was clearly trying to kill him," he said. "We had to restrain him for himself. It was clear if we didn't restrain him, he could have tried to harm people in our family." Kennedy Ivey had been bound to his bed for 3 days without medical attention, with his brother called emergency services. Explaining that Kennedy Ivey was complaining of dehydration, he appeared to have developed breathing issues and was pronounced dead at 10:17 a.m. The Independent reported, while police were at the house, Colleen Ivey allegedly carried out an attempted resurrection by chanting and praying for Mr. Ivey. All seven of Kennedy Ivey's family members were accused of manslaughter, false imprisonment, and causing or allowing the death of a vulnerable adult. A post-mortem examination revealed over 60 wounds, including a possible bite on Kennedy Ivey's body, and his father, Kenneth Ivey, along with 4 of his brothers, sustained injuries as well. The BBC reported Kenneth Ivey told jurors he ordered his son to take shifts and use overwhelming force, but denied that an association with cults, occults, and secret societies played in any part in the death. After a 4-day jury deliberation, all 7 family members were cleared of charges on March 14, 2019. Family decided to insulate their home in New Bern, Pennsylvania in 2015. They discovered it had already been with scores of dead animal carcasses. As Fox reported, the dead animals were wrapped in newspaper from the 1930s and 40s and were among half-used spices and other items. After removing the items, they sent hundreds of artifacts and carcasses to an expert in Gottstown. The expert attributed the rotting animals and their wounds to powwow or Dutch magic, a ritual originating in the culture of the Pennsylvania Dutch to treat ailments and gain physical and spiritual protection. The Pennsylvania Dutch were a group of German-speaking settlers to Pennsylvania in the 1600s and 1700s, are often of Lutheran, Mennonite, or Amish faiths. The Washington Post notes on the magic. Many of the spell deals with the cares of livestock, finding water, or the treatment of minor ailments, reflecting the condition and concern of early American settlers. But powwow also has within a tradition of darker spells and even of such thing as conjuring demons. One notable ritual in their tradition is this hex to create loyalty in a dog. To attach a dog to a person, provided nothing else was used before to effect it. Try to draw some of your blood and let the dog eat along with his food, and he will stay with you. The mold found on the rotting carcasses in the Bridges home has caused illness among the family members, and they say that the other hasn't gone away. Friends noticed that Danielle Harkins, a 35-year-old school teacher near St. Petersburg, Florida, started acting strangely in June of 2012, developing an interest in demonic rituals. Soon after, she was arrested for abuse of 7 of her former students, as the Tampa Bay Times reported. Danielle Harkins told the kids they need to rid their bodies of demons. As the group gathered before dusk Saturday around a small fire near the St. Petersburg Pier, they should cut their skin to let the evil spirits out. Police said she told the children. Then they needed to burn the wounds to ensure that those spirits will not return. When Harkins held a lighter to one teen's hands, wind blew the flame out.
That prompted her to douse his hand in perfume before setting it on fire. The boy suffered second-degree burns. As police said, another teen was cut on the neck with a broken bottle. Harkin used a flame to hit a small K, which he then used to cauterize the wound. The police were notified because a friend, one of the students who participated in the ritual, raised alarms. However, none of the students themselves told their parents about the event or would comment following the arrest of Harkins for aggravated battery and child abuse. NBC News reported, investigators said they've spoken to Harkins, but she did not spell out what type of religion would require such drastic measures. She hasn't informed us exactly what she was trying to accomplish with this, Poets of the St. Petersburg Police Department said. Elisa Lam last seen on January 31, 2013 in the lobby of the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She was vacationing through the West Coast, documenting the trip on her blog, and checking in with her parents every day. On January 31st, the call stopped. Lam had vanished. Soon the police were involved and her parents arrived to help with the search. They had nothing. That February, LAPD released elevator surveillance footage of Lam before her disappearance. The footage showed Lam behaving strangely in the elevator, appearing to talk with invisible people, peering around the corner of the door, crouching in the corner, and opening and closing the door. But what exactly is going on in this video raises more questions than answers. Theories range from psychotic episode to demonic possession to unknown assailant just out of the camera's view. Around the time hotel guests started reported weird things happening with the Cecil Hotel water supply, as CNN News report. The shower was awful, said Sabina Vo, who spent 8 days there during the investigation. When you turned on the tap on, the water was coming black first for 2 seconds and then it was going back to normal. The tap water tasted horrible, Bo said. It had a very funny, sweetie, disgusting taste. It's a very strange taste, I can barely describe it. But for a week they never complained. We never thought anything of it, she said. We thought it was just the way it was here. On the morning of February 19, a hotel employee climbed to the roof and used a ladder to investigate the hotel's water storage tank. That's where authorities found the decomposing naked body of Lam, whose personal items were found nearby. After an autopsy, her death was labeled accidental. Invisible Los Angeles reported at the time about the strange circumstances in the hotel's past. The tank has a metal latch that can be opened, but authorities said access to the roof is secure with an alarm and lock. The single-room occupancy hotel has unusual history. Night stalker Richard Ramirez, who was found guilty of 14 slayings in the 1980s, lived on the 14th floor for several months in 1985. An international serial killer, Jack Underwood, is suspected of murdering 3 prostitutes during the time he lived there in 1991. He killed himself in jail in 1994. In 1962, a female occupant jumped out of the hotel's window, killing herself and a pedestrian on whom she landed. Last year, the Indiana Police Star published a lengthy report on a family terrorized by 3 children allegedly possessed by demons. The account of Latoya Amos and her family tells disturbing stories of children climbing up to walls, getting thrown across rooms, and children threatening doctors in deaf, unnatural voices. It would seem like something straight out of a movie, a work of fantasy, except all of these accounts were more or less corroborated with nearly 800 pages of official record obtained by the Indiana Police Star and recounted in more than a dozen interviews with police. This is personal psychologists, family members, and a Catholic priest. One of the more chilling sections of the report includes a segment about the possessed 9-year-old. According to Washington Original Disease Report, an account corroborated by Walker, the nurse, the 9-year-old had a weird grin and walked backward up a wall to the ceiling. He then flipped over Campbell, landing on his feet. He never let go of his grandmother's hand. Another segment of the piece reads, the 12-year-old will later tell mental health professionals that she sometimes felt as if she were being choked and held down so she couldn't speak or move. She said she heard a boy say she'd never see her family again and wouldn't live another 20 minutes. In September of 2014, a Utah 10 returned to his home to find his parents and three siblings dead. In a notebook, a to-do list had been scribbled on the pages. The list looked as if the parents were readying to go on vacation. Items such as feed the pets and find someone to watch after the house were written. The Salt Lake Tribune reported. It appeared to the murderer's suicide, but there was no suicide note, no prior indication that they will do this, no explanation. Police could not figure out why two parents would kill themselves and three of their four children. For a year, no one knew exactly what happened to the family or what would drive the parents to do something so unthinkable. In January, police released more chilling details in the case. According to accounts from family members and an investigation by police, the parents were driven by a belief that the apocalypse was coming and obsession with a convicted killer, as the Washington Post reported. Friends and family told police that the parents were worried about the evil in the world and wanted to escape a pending apocalypse, but most assumed they just wanted to move somewhere off the grid. Investigators also found letters written by Christy Strack to one of the state's most infamous convicted killers. Dan Lafferty was convicted in a 1984 fatal stabbing of his sister-in-law and her one-year-old daughter. According to trial testimony, he killed the victims at the order of his brother, Ron Lafferty, who claimed to have had a revelation from God. The three became a book called Under the Banner of Heaven. Police said Christy Strack became friends with Dan Lafferty and she and her husband even visited him in person. In 2007, ABC News documented a series of cell phone calls to families with terrifyingly specific death threats. The unidentified callers knew exactly what families were doing and what they were wearing. The families say the call comes in at all hours of the night, threatening to kill their children, their pets, and grandparents. Voicemail arrived playing records of their private conversation, including one with a local police detective. The caller knows, the family said, what they're wearing and what they're doing. After months of investigating, police seemed powerless to stop them. This went on with the Kuykendall family for months, who reported a caller with a scratchy voice threatening to slit their throats. When the Faircrest Wash police tried to find the culprit, the calls were traced back to the Kuykendalls' own phones. Even when they were turned off, it got worse. The Kuykendalls and two other First's family told ABC News that they believe the callers are using their cell phone to spy on them. They say the hackers know their every move, where they are, what they're doing, and what they're wearing. The callers have recorded private conversation, the families and police said, including a meeting with a local detective. After moving into their $1.3 million dream home, a New Jersey family started receiving creepy death threats from someone who identified himself as the Watcher, as CBS News reported earlier this year. Since moving in, the owner said they have received numerous letters from the mysterious person, the Watcher. Claimed the home has been the subject of my family for decades, and I've been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming, Castro reported. The new owners have several children, and other letter asked, have they found out what is in the walls yet? And I am pleased to know your names now and the name of the young blood you have brought on me. The family was forced to flee from their home and later filed a lawsuit against the previous owners.
Thank you so much, guys, for I hope you enjoy the videos, the 10 most terrifying stories that reported on news. Please like, subscribe, and click notification below. I love you so much. Thank you for helping me to reach a 1,000 subscriber. I really owe this to you. Thank you so much. Be spooky. Thank you so much. Bye.